One of the easiest ways I found to start a fire pit is by basically moving in a circle and using your shovel and basically spiking the ground back and forth. Remember, this is not leave no trace. This is going to be a campfire that we are planning to use over and over and over again. After I kind of make a circle or a good idea where I'm going to put it, I am then going to take just the top piece of this off. I'm not trying to really dig down into the dirt very deep, but I just want to be able to put it off to the side. This is going to help make sure that the fire is extinguished once we get done with it. This area does not have a whole lot of rock, so we can't really put rock around it as easy. I did see a few rocks down by the creek that we'll probably go and get and put around here. But for right now, I am just trying to make a very well-defined fire pit. Okay, so I've got a few things. We got our fire pit ready to go here that we're going to start with. Number one thing is trying to keep it small as possible. Only have a fire going to what you need. The other thing I've kind of gathered up is bark. The bark is a good idea to basically set down as a ground level. It can help insulate it off the ground a little bit. This right here is tinder. In my opinion, this here is good enough because I know how to build a fire. If I was doing this for a competition, like a one match, trying to get it as quickly as possible, I would have at least twice as much, maybe even 3 times as much. But if you can see, this is roughly the thickness of pencil lead. Also, tinder should be dry enough to where you can snap it just that easy. Kindling is a little bit bigger than the tinder. Again, if I was doing this as a competition or something, I would have probably 4 times this amount right here. I would have a good arm load of this stuff right here because your tinder is going to catch, then it's going to start your kindling. Again, your kindling should be dry enough that you could actually snap this fairly easily. Sometimes just with one hand, depending upon, kind of the type of wood and how hard it is. Then here, this is our fuel wood. Our fuel wood does not necessarily have to be big, huge logs or stumps or anything like that. It is generally considered in between the size of your finger and the size of your wrist. Generally, you don't really need a huge amount more than that. Of course, the bigger logs will usually burn a lot longer, but this right here is your fuel wood that keeps the fire going, and it'll also produce the most coals for cooking. Okay, so we got our fire pit kind of prepared. Got a little bit of dirt around the outside just to mainly define it. This will also help us whenever we get ready to leave. We can push this back into it, and that kind of helps make sure that we are cold out. In order to insulate this off the ground, I'm going to take some of these larger pieces of bark and put them down as kind of base. This right here is kind of interesting because this is sometimes referred to as punk wood. This is the inner bark, and it is really soft, really flexible. You can sit there and you can, of course I'm getting attacked by flies here, but anyway, you can go through and you can actually push this in. If you are basically doing your 4th of July stuff, you hear word punk, that's actually what some of that is made out of. It will hold an ember and it will do a very good job. So I'm going to put all this bark down to basically make a base before I start building my fire. Okay, the fire lay I'm going to build is something that you actually don't see in the Scout Handbook. The one in the Scout Handbook are very good for beginners, and also they are very easy to do and repeatable. I personally like this, especially if you're trying for a one-match type situation. I've heard this called a half cabin, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with my fuel wood. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to start laying this in, just kind of in similar to the log cabin type style. but I'm going to overlap some of these. And if I wind up with some that are a little bit smaller, I can actually kind of put them a little bit closer to the fire. The bigger ones I can put on the outside. And I mean, keep in mind, this stuff, it does not have to be perfect or anything, by no means, but this right here is our fuel wood. It's pretty warm out here today, so we are actually not looking to start this until probably right at dark, or right at whenever we need to cook our dinner. So this is going to sit here for a little while, but like I said, the smaller pieces are going to go kind of towards the inside, larger pieces would go on the outside. I now will take my kindling on one side and my tinder. Again, this is a decent enough for me because I can actually take this and break it in half. It's nice and dry, but I'm going to set this just right there. And then my kindling, I am going to continue overlapping and building this, but it's actually going to eventually sit partially on top of my tinder as well. So what I've got is, again, kind of a half cabin. The half cabin is just kind of like the back end of this. And the way this works is basically by all the other fire starting principles. You got your tinder will get the little bit larger stuff on fire, then your larger stuff will get your fuel wood going. To light a match off, we're going to take our matchbox. We got this. We are a little ways from the magnesium tip. All right, match went out. Let's give it a second match try. I was up a little high. Looks like we got our tinder going. Yeah, but it shouldn't be that. I just think I'm laying it on top and not necessarily in the tinder. See, that one's taking off a little bit better. Is that your phone or mine?
That's my phone. Mom's texting.
We got it that time.
Yeah, I think we did. Well, you did. Should I?
Okay, we are getting ready to leave camp. This is the remains of the campfire from last night. We did not rebuild the fire this morning. I just took the shovel and reburied it. The last thing you do before you leave a campfire, once you're sure it is cold out, is you want to take a stick and put it into the fire sticking straight up. It needs to be a fairly sizable stick, but what this does is twofold. One, a camp ranger can walk by, see the stick sticking out of there, and know you properly put it out. The second thing is, if there is a wildfire, they could actually go back through, look at the stick, and if the stick is unburnt at the bottom part, they know that the origin of the wildfire did not start at this campfire.